Hello, it's me, Ricky Lai, with a new review. Reviewing the new Nine Callisto album, Radical. Nine Callisto is a rapper from Colorado, very young. He's actually around my age. That makes things a lot more impressive when you consider that at that age, he actually understands what makes a good rap album, which is pretty cool. When he released his first album, Sinister Flash, I reviewed it on my main channel, Master Jake Studios, and to be honest, I'm not so fond of that review I did. Mainly because I wasn't exactly that familiar with hip-hop at the time. I think at the time I reviewed that album, my only experience with hip-hop and rap had been epic rap battles of history. And this was the case for my review of his next album, Antisocial. Although, actually looking back on it, I probably was a little bit more familiar. But again, I hadn't exactly delved into the genre that much. But still, Antisocial was an improvement on Sinister Flash in a lot of ways. There were better songs, there were better lyrics, and also he got quite a few cool guest verses from people like Chris Travis and even Gangsta Boo. I have to say, that's pretty good. Although, after I released that review, I got a couple of suggestions from my friends. Hey, Ricky, you should check out more hip-hop and rap artists to get yourself more familiar with the genre, so I did. And at this point right now, I think I'm at least a little bit more comfortable when setting out to review a hip-hop or a rap album. Radical wasn't the only project Nine Callisto released. He did release a couple of tracks, such as the hilarious single Hentai, and also a pre-Radical EP, which I did review, or sort of review. I kind of just, yeah. I kind of said it was good. It was good. I like the dark, brutal, edgy side to Nine Callisto we hadn't quite seen from him yet. But it seems that on Radical, things are a lot more different, things are a lot more personal. Although when you first listen to Radical, that might not be so obvious, because it starts off with tracks like Boss and New Year, New Me, and then Ask for Favors. Songs where Nine Callisto is just being so braggadocious, and he's just boasting a lot. And this doesn't come off as totally unlikable. It just comes off as someone who's very bold, very confident, a little bit cocky, especially when you've got hooks like, I'm the motherfucking boss. And then you've also got the song Ask for Favors. It's essentially a song where Nine Callisto is talking about people he knew who were disrespecting him before, but now that he's found a place in the underground hip-hop game, people are coming up to him and asking him for favors. Although when you have songs like these are contrasted by songs which, over the course of the album, kind of hint that this whole braggadocious personality is just a facade, that it's just kind of masking what he truly feels. And this is kind of hinted at, first of all, with the track Mask, where Nine Callisto's rapping about, well, okay, actually, first of all, this is a song from Sinister Flash. Sinister Flash wasn't exactly a great album. In fact, I think Nine Callisto kind of refers to it as a joke album, and Antisocial as the first proper album, which, I mean, fair enough. But this rendition of Mask on Radical is far better in terms of production, in terms of delivery. It seems Nine Callisto is a lot more confident in delivering his lines, where at one point he says, "Smile on my face, it only hides the melancholy." And it kind of hints at the fact that Nine Callisto is very... there's just something stuck in my eye, and it's really bothering me. It might be an eyelash or something. I might be like rubbing my eye quite a lot during this review, and that's going to be really annoying if you're easily distracted by things, but I'll try to keep away from it. But yeah, Nine Callisto is kind of hinting at the fact that, yes, he has this personality that's very boastful, but it's really just a way of Nine Callisto to kind of mask up his true feelings of self-doubt, hesitation, and even pain. So sometimes Nine Callisto will deliver some pretty interesting lines. He'll drop some pretty interesting similes or analogies. I think at one point I heard him compare someone to a chicken tender or something. It's a little bit silly, but hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he will drop a video game reference, a little bit geeky, kind of showing that, yes, at that age, he is just a regular teenager who likes video games. But when he's rapping, he has this character that he gets into. He refers to characters like Ash Ketchum and Yoshi and even Ichi Makoto from school days of all animes. And they can be quite entertaining, although some part of me does think that sometimes when Nine Callisto drops a reference to a video game or an anime, it can come off a little bit forced. Like, did that reference really need to be there. You know, sometimes, as I say, it does work, it does establish his character. This is kind of explored even more on the track Thunder Boy. There's not only a haunting, eerie beat, but over the top of it, Nine Callisto is rapping with a harsh, brutal delivery, but his lyrics suggest otherwise, that he's actually just a pretty regular teenager. He likes video games, as I said before. There's also a line in here about meeting someone who's very heavily involved with selling drugs, and then he says, no, I'm not all about that life. And he also has a couple of lines here and there about still being in that spot where you're trying to reach for your goals. So Nine Callisto does kind of hint at a little bit of vulnerability, but not in a way that's kind of overly sappy or overly just trying to reach out to your heart. It's kind of like, he's like a rapper who you know is flawed, like he's trying to come across as really tough and intimidating, but occasionally he lets loose a line which sounds like it wouldn't come from someone who's intimidating. This isn't a bad thing. I think it's actually quite clever the way Nine Callisto goes about it on this album. Like, one line which I really liked was something about flying without a wingspan and flying without feathers. This could be interpreted in two ways. You could say that Nine Callisto is struggling to take off, like he's flying but he hasn't got the feathers or the wingspan to be able to do that. Or you could interpret it in a more optimistic manner, like Nine Callisto has taken flight and he's flying, but he doesn't need feathers or wingspan. He's defied the expected. There's also a really entertaining bit where Nine Callisto is describing a situation where he's reading his tweets, he sees someone subtweeting on his feed, he assumes that this person is subtweeting about him, and he calls the police over it, and he gets his squad to come over to the house, knock the door down. And it's so ridiculous and silly. But this is a very common aspect of the album where Nine Callisto describes Twitter beef, or internet beef in general, because Nine Callisto is very prominent online. Obviously, if you're online a lot of the time, you will see a lot of beef on the internet. And Nine Callisto, in a way, kind of satirizes this. And he does realize that this can, to an outsider, look pretty silly. There's also this bit about trying to stay humble, but it is hard when people are hating wherever you go. And this kind of links back to his braggadocious personality, the fact that he's using it as a facade, and also links back to the song Mask. I mean, this whole internet thing is carried on to more tracks on the album, like the title track, Radical. But on this track, on this title track, Nine Callisto is being probably more self-aware than ever. He kind of goes, yeah, I'm Nine Callisto, I brag, I boast. Finishes a verse by saying, I spit these bars at the back of the basement, then immediately contradicts that with the hook that says, I am radical, and something about being a savage, wild animal. It's kind of hilarious because you know that there's a complete irony in saying, oh, I spit bars at the back of the basement, which is totally not something an intimidating rapper would try to say. And then he just goes on to say, but I'm still a savage person, I'm still a badass dude. Not every line is gold. As I said before, there are some lines which will make you just kind of wince a little bit. But these moments are kind of amidst some really good verses. And secondly, I don't think necessarily some lines, I don't think that necessarily every line was meant to be gold. I mean, I don't want to put that excuse to such an extent where it kind of excuses every bad line on the album. But there are some moments where you think, there's got to be a reason he said that, because that line is part of his character. He sometimes says some pretty silly things, like on the track New Year, New Me, where he impersonates like Count Dracula or some vampirical person, saying, I'd rather get my dick sucked by a skeleton. Which is so silly. It kind of made me laugh when it came, because it just came out of nowhere. Think of it like Danny Brown on XXX. Except Danny Brown's a little bit more extreme than Nine Callisto. The song Salty, featuring KPE and Cascade, is the beat on that song bangs so flippin' hard. It's another song about kind of internet beef. Very entertaining too. Cascade on this track. Absolute treat, for sure. Actually, speaking of guest verses, there was one guest verse which I didn't exactly find myself so fond of. And that was on the track Ask for Favors. It was by Lil Champ Fouet, who, during his guest verse towards the back end of the track, spends most of his verse just pausing, just taking pauses. When you look at the lyrics, it's kind of just rewording what Nine Callisto had said previously on the track. The song Remembering Old Days, Nine Callisto actually starts to experiment with the dynamics and his flow. You've also got the song Mr. Sandman, which is probably my favorite song on the whole record. This is an extremely haunting song with some really heart-wrenching strings, the kind of a sense of sadness or bittersweetness during that hook. Nine Callisto is actually being very real and serious. He's kind of broken his braggadocious personality to spit some genuinely sad bars where he's describing some injustice that he witnesses or some stuff that just makes him feel a little bit uneasy. And he tops this off by, during the hook, repeating the phrase, "Mr. Sandman, just send me to sleep." As if to say, I don't want to witness all of this. It's not exactly the most uplifting song, but it feels like a track on the album where Nine Callisto is being extremely real. After this track, however, the album seems to gain a slice of bliss, or at least has this moment of realization for Nine Callisto. Especially on the track Victory, where things are very triumphant, or the final track, Tears, which is an extremely fun track. There's the sense that Nine Callisto has found himself. The beat is awesome as well, with these chiptune embellishments all over the track, just kind of chirping all throughout the beat. It's actually really, really cool. The only track on this album which I wasn't so fond of was the opening track, Boss. And that's not because of Nine Callisto himself. His delivery has the right amount of energy that you would expect from an opening track where Nine Callisto is trying to just say, "I'm the boss." But it's just the beat, because the instrumental on this track is trying to build up, like, you know how some songs try to build up and build up and build up and then have this drop that would just make you want to dance. I see that's what this track was trying to do. It didn't exactly nail it, because the song Boss has this moment where it is building up and building up and building up, and you expect something so bassy and something so thick that it's gonna make you want to just dance and just kind of just rock out. The drop actually ends up falling flat and ends up sounding extremely awkward and empty. It's basically all you hear is what sounds like a tuba just going, and because that's all you hear, and it's not as bassy or as thick, I feel if it were more bassy and a little bit thicker, it probably would have accompanied Nine Callisto's vocals a little bit better. But overall, this album, Radical, is fantastic. A very, very, very good album from Nine Callisto here. Yeah. 8 out of 10.